faith is strong. I'm holding on. I believe I could be more than what you think I could be. We could be the end. I may be done.
Oh, something. Okay, wait. I'm totally gonna have to. Are we gonna go on a break, right?
Okay. Oh, this is fine. And my heart is breaking, but my faith is strong. And I'll keep holding on, 'cause I believe. Ooh, maybe when I go high, I could be.
It is Wednesday, the 26th of October, 2022. Good afternoon, Namibia, and a very warm welcome to today's discussion, coming to you live from the Government Information Center here in the heart of the capital city, Windhoek. I am your host, Helene Felipesa-Munyela, and alongside my three studio guests, we'll be keeping you company between now and 4 o'clock. On today's menu, we are discussing mental health in perspective. And I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Lahia Hamunyela, specialist psychiatry and mental health with the Ministry of Health and Social Services. Good afternoon, doctor, and a warm welcome to today's discussion.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. I'm also joined by Ms. Tekla Ita, a mental health activist and ambassador. Good afternoon, Ms. Ita. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board.
Well, thank you so much for having me, ma'am.
All right. And lastly, we are joined by a non-stranger, somebody who's become quite frequent with the Government Information Center, Ms. Vanessa Maresh, an empowerment specialist from Salt Essential IT. Good afternoon, Ms. Maresh. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back.
Thank you so very much. It's an absolute pleasure being back.
All right. Now, statistics shows that mental health affects 19% of adult population and 46% of teenage population and 13% of children each year. However, only half of the affected population receive treatment, often because of the stigma attached to mental health. Untreated mental health illness can cause high medical expenses, poorer performances at both school and work, and fewer employment opportunities, and unfortunately, increased risk of suicide. Dr. Munyela, mental health is as important as other body part health, When should one seek for seek for assistance with regards to mental health?
Okay, thank you very much. I like the introduction that you have done to say mental health is important as the physical ailments. Most of the time we are actually advocating and recommending that individuals and societies seek help immediately. We are saying you don't wait until the symptoms are debilitating. So the moment you see that or the family or your friends see that there is a deterioration or neglect in some areas, especially like if we look at teenagers, we say like school performances are going down, then we urge the teachers then to be able to can pinpoint this to say, look, what is happening? Why is this child having poor results? Then do we need to engage? When we say mental health, then we don't necessarily only say the person must go see a psychiatrist. Yeah, we mean also a psychologist, a social worker, an occupational therapist. But basically we're saying we all need to have them as we have our GP. And we should be able to see them per year at least, we say twice in a year. And we know the numbers are limited, but we are saying that there are available services. So make it a regular thing for you to access it. Now, unfortunately, most people come to mental health or seek mental health when they are really at the lowest point, you know. So, for example, if it's suicide or they've attempted suicide, that's when they enter the health sector. But we're saying like there are certain symptoms that are prodromal. And we have to be able to recognize that because the person moved from the baseline functioning to a lower functioning level. So therefore, they could be, if it's a parent, they are not able to fulfill their parental duties. They're not able to take care of the children. And then we look at work. Or work, is the person there, is the person performing, or there are a lot of abstinence, then we need to intervene on that. So you can access mental health services through even your GP, you know, like with the symptoms that you're presenting, then they can say, okay, we are going to refer you to mental health or private psychiatrist or psychologist, and then you access it there, you know. So we are saying that it's not only a certain group. So we look at the whole spectrum. You enter as early as even the 9-year-old. Today we had a 9-year-old, you know. So from there, we have to be able to talk to our children and be comfortable to talk about it and say, look, this is not your best performance. So what we would want is for you to be mentally healthy. And if you're not mentally healthy, a lot of functions you are not able to fulfill that. And it can be seen by your peers, by your school teachers, by your work, you know, your employer can also see that, and your colleagues. So then we just need to look at what are the symptoms that are there, and then how do we access the mental health services.
Okay, doctor. Based on what you just alluded to, doctor, and in many a times, for example, if hypothetically speaking, in a family unit, you figure that something could be wrong with a family member, what is the best way to go about telling them that I think you may need assistance?
Okay, now there it's very important also to look at how do you define mental health? How do you see it as holistically in the family? Do we have stigma attached to that? So if there's stigma attached to that, then we have to look at how do you address the stigma so that it doesn't form a barrier in preventing the family member to come to see mental health. Because sometimes, even if you admit the patient, you find that the family, because of the belief and the stigma they have attached to the mental health, they come and sign the patient out. Do you understand? So when you sign the patient out, we don't really have a lot of control over that. But what you are doing is actually you are interrupting, you are interfering with the treatment of that patient. You are interfering with the patient reaching their maximum functioning level. And if you interrupt that and the patient has go a long time untreated, they are less likely to reach their full potential. And therefore, we're saying, like, if we say, okay, come in and we put you on medication, then we need to explain and we need to educate the family also to say, look, the medication is only specific, for example, if it's depression. You say, okay, it's just for depression, it's just to help the patient alleviate their mood because they are very down. Once that has come up, it has been increased, all the chemicals in the brain has been balanced, then this person can then continue with the psychotherapy, meaning the psychologist, and then we can at a later stage remove the medication. But if we keep interrupting, then the chances means that instead of being on this medication for 6 months, it means this person need to be on the medication for a prolonged period, like 2 years, you know, because then they have relapses. Then we need to look at all those things. And then we have to start, we're saying mental health treatment is free of charge in this country. So we go there. The only thing is people have to be prepared to say, I would be sitting a long period, especially if I go to public sector, a long period because there is a large number of patients on a daily basis. And they just need to be patient to say, okay, if I come, if for example I came at 8 and the person is going to see me at 10 or 12, there are some that wait until 4 when it's closing time, and then we still see them but then give them a follow-up date. And then the patient need to commit themselves also to say, look, I have to make sure I go for my follow-ups because this is very important for the patient. All right.
Well, but thank you, doctor, for that information. Ms. Tekla, Ms. Ita, if I can refer to you. Tell us about the mental health in the entertainment industry, particularly the causes and effects thereof.
All right. Actually, being in the entertainment industry, you are 3 times at risk of developing a mental disorder. This is due to various factors, the stresses of it all. You know, your pressure to perform, to always create something that would make you relevant. That pressure of being away from home, and to that fear of being rejected or not, or that failure, the fear of failure, basically. So it plays a lot and it gives a lot of stress, and so it's 3 times that you're at risk of contracting or not contracting, developing a mental disorder. And the effects, we see them daily. We see our colleagues, you know, indulging in substance, you know, abuse. Yes, and we've gone through, as I'm sure you've seen it on the news, in the newspaper, where some of our colleagues have committed suicide, where some of our colleagues have overdosed, where some of our colleagues are, you know, not in the best condition mentally that they should be. I basically suffered from depression for a long time, and it has kept me from producing or being productive, and it has hindered me for a very long time. And I feel like we don't know where to go for help. It was something that we didn't discuss, basically, because there's so much that plays into it. You don't know who to talk to because you are a public figure. If I go and tell doctor my problems, she's probably going to go and say, I was at this office, I was at the office, and you won't believe who walked in. The dog came in and you won't believe what problems they're having, you know. So it will feed the rumor mill. And that will still come back and add more stress to the artist. So we try to be protective. We don't talk about our problems because it will be seen as a sign of weakness, failure. And those are the things that gives us anxiety in the first place. So it's not easy at all being in the industry and having to really take care of your, you know, mental health. But I feel like we should prioritize it. Like she said, it should be number 1. So we should take it as, I don't know, we should bite the bullet to say that it might not be scary to go seek for help, but you need to seek that help so that you don't develop these issues forward and going forward and seeing all these things that we're seeing now.
Okay. Doctor, what are the signs that one needs to be on the outlook for mental health care?
Okay. When we talk about mental health, we are talking about a broad spectrum of disorders, of illnesses. Basically, like what Tekla said, she suffered from depression. So depression is listed among the first top 3 non-communicable diseases by WHO that are causing disability among the population. So when it comes to depression, we say now it's a mood disorder. So therefore, the person would probably, not probably, would be more depressed most of the time, for the most period of the day, majority of the day. And then it causes them not to be as productive or as effective as they normally are. And sometimes it also presents with eating difficulties. They can have less appetite or increased appetite, and then it presents also with the weight instability, but mostly importantly here we say they feel very worthless, and will decrease self-esteem. Yeah, and sometimes they present with suicidal thoughts, suicidal attempts, and that is just because of where they are or what they feel. And sometimes they can self-indulge in substance. I like what you said, in substances. Then therefore it's not that the person wants to take the substances, but they're self-medicating so that they don't feel that emptiness that they're feeling in themselves. So another important thing is also a positive family history of the different disorders, making an individual at a higher risk as compared to the normal population, or as compared to somebody who does not have a family history of the mental illnesses. So that is now depression under the mood disorders. There are others that we say it's psychotic disorders. Then that means that the person presents with disorganized behavior, disorganized thoughts, and the hearing of the voices, the seeing of things that others are not seeing. The thing here when you say it's a psychotic disorder is the voices that this person is hearing can be commanding. And the person has lost reality, touch with reality, so they're not able to can distinguish that this is something that's happening in my head. It's probably not the reality of what I'm going through here. So, but they then follow what the voices are saying because they have lost touch with reality. So, and then they also become very scared because they don't know what they are hearing and seeing. So this then controls them, and they're afraid, also to tell the person, if I come to you and I say, I'm hearing this, can you hear it? The first thing this person responds is actually not very encouraging.
It's not warming, yes.
Yeah,
not warming.
so it will break the other person also, and the person is already scared. And then if you are not receptive to this, the person will back off. Will back down and live in their own environment with the voices. So there are other things we say that this can also be childhood mental illnesses. We are not excluding that. And then also on the other spectrum, old age, that also other things, other mental disorders develop. And therefore we need to be cognizant of the spectrum, to say the age spectrum. Where what is the main thing that or stresses at those different points, and then how do we instill coping mechanisms with the person? Because some people, we say they are vulnerable, and some people can be resilient, because we can go through the same experiences, but one will develop a mental disorder as a result of the stressor that they are going through. But the one who has the resilience means that I can experience that stressor, but that stressor will not lead me to have a mental disorder. But this is all predetermined by the way your individual strength is made up with, your genetic, and then the social and the psychological aspect of it. So if we leave it, we're saying that we are not actually treating this person holistically. And the spiritual part of it also comes into play because it's a supportive system. The family as a unit also comes in. If they are not supportive, then that will also cause another problem because then it can lead to other traumatic disorders because we also have a section of what we call stress and stress-related disorders. So anything then can also cause a person to have post-traumatic stress disorders. And all of that we say now we need to look at it and we need to make people aware that with the changing in our environment, we need to take cognizance of how to take care of one another. And if the other one is having this problem, where do we go? And the receiving the mental or the health sector must be also receptive to the patient, and accommodative to make it open and for them to feel, I can go here. And professionally, also ethically, we are bound to protect an individual because like even if a famous person comes in your office, I'm bound by ethics not to divulge. Because my first priority is to protect this individual and do no harm to this individual. Because you can be a high-profile person, but you're not exempted from developing a mental illness.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, doctor, I have a follow-up question for you. For a natural healthy born person, what could some of the triggers be that would trigger mental health? Or mental illness?
Okay. Normally when you take a history or when you look at the lifespan of a person, we are saying we look at the time period before you were born. What is it that the parent did to keep themselves healthy? And during pregnancy, were there any stresses that the mother encountered? Yeah. What about her diet? Was it healthy? What about the time that the child was born? Did anything happen out of the ordinary? Was the labor prolonged? Was it normal? Did we have to use any instruments to remove the child from the birth canal? All these things. And then when the child is now born, we say the developmental stages. Were they normal? Were they delayed? Or were they on time? Or were they earlier? All these things play in. And then immunization comes into place. Did we take the child for immunization? If that has not been done, that can also then predispose the person later. Now, also what they're going through education-wise, that also predetermines. During school, what is it? Was this child bullied? Did they bully others? What was the cause of bullying? How did they perform in school? All this. And then as they go into adulthood, you also look at the point of what are the things that are now predominant in that. And then as they reach later age, late adulthood, also we look at that. What is the thing? And then also now, when they are later age.
Okay, well put, doctor. Ms. Ita, you've just earlier alluded to that you yourself have battled with depression. We are glad to have you and to still, to have you as a productive citizen of this country. And for the mere fact that you've actually gone out and seek for help, that already is an inspiration to many. I'd like to pose a question. Where was your first point of entry to be able to get assistance?
Okay. Like many people, I didn't know what mental health was. I didn't know what symptoms to look for. I think what we thought was mental health disorder was running around in the street, or speaking to yourself, or those things, because that's what our parents taught us, and we were taught to stay away from those people, don't touch them or you'll be like them. I think they were just trying to protect us. So for a long time, I didn't know I was depressed or that I was suffering from depression. I just thought, okay, I'm going through a hard time right now, but I'm going to be strong and I'm going to get through it. I'm just going to push harder. But I later realized that my push wasn't the push that I was supposed to be giving. It wasn't healthy for me. I wasn't coping well. And it took my sister, my beautiful sister, Sylvia, to come and sit down with me and say, Tekla, I think you need to go speak to somebody. I'm like, what for? I'm not going to speak to a stranger. And she said, you know what, I'll organize everything. I just want you to go sit down with this person. And you never know, I'll take you there personally. So I was like, okay, fine, just to get you off my back, I'll go with you. So I went over there, and I thought it was going to be a 30-minute thing. We ended up speaking for over an hour, 30 minutes or so, and I realized then that I wasn't okay. I was not okay for a very long time. And so after that one session, I then went back and I did my own research on what was mental health. And I realized I was making a lot of decisions that were not good for me at all. Because what mental health is looking after yourself. You understand? Yeah. And engaging in positive things that make you grow. And I was engaging in things that weren't making me grow, that were breaking me down. Like alcohol abuse was one of my go-to things. I would entertain unhealthy relationships with people because I felt I didn't make decisions that were healthy for me. So right now, Dr. Mogus, who's a specialist in Oshakati, maybe you know him, he said that mental health is not a destination, it's a journey, because you kind of have to consistently look after yourself and just, try to be as healthy as possible and seek help, and as long as you do your research and find out what are the signs, you can then better say, okay, I think I need to go and I need to seek this, I need to change this, I need to do this. So that's what happened.
All right. Okay, now Namibia, as you may know, or as per the usual, this is a conversation of national concern. We are inviting you, our viewers and listeners, to add your voice to this conversation. You can follow the conversation on our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are at Ministry of Information and Communications Technology, Republic of Namibia, or you can follow the discussion on our YouTube, where our handle is MICT Namibia. Alternatively, you can call us in the studio, and the call-in number is 061-400-397. I repeat, the call-in number is 061-400-397. As we continue with the conversation and as we wait for the contributions of our viewers and listeners to add their voice to this conversation, I'd like to ask you, Dr. Munyela, do we have mental health institutions here in Namibia? And if yes, where are they located?
Okay. Yes, we do have mental health institutions in Namibia. The main one that we have here is the mental health unit, which is situated between Central Hospital and Katutura Hospital. We are operational from Monday to Friday from 8 to 4 o'clock, but obviously the patients come earlier than that. We have actually changed the way we see our patients. So we have days that we see outpatients and there are days that we see inpatients. So if it is a person who actually went to the clinics or in the regions, they are then referred through to us to come and see us. Apart from Windhoek, we have Oshakati. Oshakati, unfortunately, we have just a wing, so the ward 16, and there we have also at the moment like 3 psychiatrists, and we have medical officers who are also trained in identifying and treating mental illnesses. So otherwise, people just go to their local hospitals, local clinics, and then are referred based on that. To the nearest one, whether Oshakati, whether Windhoek. In the other regions, we don't have, so they're just treated at the hospital, within the hospital, by the medical officers that are there. But I think, the government is really trying their best to make other in other regions also available in the near future if the budget actually allows that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a caller on the line. Anytime from Tumip. Anytime. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good in Ireland.
I'm good, thank you. How would you like to add your voice to this conversation?
It's not with the panel there. My addition to the discussion there is, first I'd like to start by saying or asking the specialist there. This mental health concept is new to most of us. Only few we are aware of this mental health. Now, my question is, how enough of this information is to the public? And I almost wanted to ask a question that, what are the symptoms of mental health? How do I know? So now I drifted that on it. Now, how enough of this information is the public? That's my first question. Second question. Is there any statistics that shows that, okay, this is a high percentage of people facing this mental health in our country? Extending on that question, if possible, the gender. Which gender is dominating into this mental health problem? Thank you very much.
Thank you, anytime. We appreciate your input. As
Thank
always.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
Doctor, his questions were loud and clear. The first part, he just wants to know about the symptoms of mental health. I know you've briefly touched on them, but maybe he wasn't listening, or maybe you can just, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe doctor can just take us through.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's quite very important to know the symptoms, yeah? So I was saying that depending on the disorder that the person is suffering, the symptoms are then varied by that. So, but if it is a mood symptom, which then can be that the person is depressed, so this person will be more unhappy most of the time, or sad, or they can be isolating themselves from socializing with other people. They have lost interest in pleasurable activities that they normally do, that they normally used to enjoy. They have a low self-esteem, self-worthlessness. They can be suicidal, okay? They can actually be comfortable with not being alive, so that it can be the suicidal thoughts, or they can be that they have already attempted suicide in the past or in the current, and alongside with that they have self-harm tendencies. In this self-harm tendency, we are saying they like cutting themselves, yeah? So we need to always be aware of that, and you need to, the way you can find out is also like the weather times. They can be, when it's very hot, this person is dressed in long sleeve things, so we need to be asking them to pull down on that. And others can then have the voices. Your depression can also present with voices, hearing voices, or being out of touch with reality. So alongside that, we are also saying that there are the psychotic symptoms, but the psychotic symptoms, we are saying that most people, or the percentage that present with psychotic symptoms or disorders, are only 1% of the people that are presenting with mental disorders. So those people who run around the street eating things from the dustbins, beating people, and all this disorganized behavior is actually 1% of what we are seeing in the hospital. And then also we are saying that suicide itself, you need to look at it. Why is this person having completed suicide or attempted suicide? Most of them will have multiple attempts at that. So we need to look at why is that? Why is that? Then there are other disorders which we call neurodevelopmental disorders. These are disorders that happen during the developmental stage of this child, yeah? And these are childhood disorders. There are certain disorders that are just common in childhood. Then we know it's mental illnesses. Mm-hmm. And now people who present with mental illnesses vary in as low as the age of 9 years, or some of them are less than that, you know. So the one that I always like to say, look at it like in children, you find these children who are very hyperactive, yeah? Before the age of starting school, at the age of 5, you see the parents say, I cannot discipline this child, I cannot get this child to sit quiet. Or they say, mostly we label them as naughty child. But this can be a disorder. And then we just need to start them on medication and access the health care center. Then they can be able to label them.
All right, doctor. Now, Ms. Maresh, we have not forgotten about you. I'm just coming to you now. Okay, so now from a business perspective, and especially seeing that we have just slowly exited the COVID pandemic, period, there was a huge mental strain on employees causing or contribution to mental health problems. As a service provider in the ICT industry, and being involved in setting up work from home, can you talk to us through the impacts that lockdown had on people?
Sure.
Yeah, on people's mental health. Sorry.
Mental health, yes.
Yes.
I think it had an impact on mental health, probably most of all. So when we saw the work from home shift in 2020, beginning of 2020, a lot of people were moved physically from their offices to their homes, and given technology, laptops, computers, mobile phones, and they were and internet, and they were told, all right, there you go, now you have everything you need to work from home. And what was actually happening at home was something completely different than what the management or your supervisors at the time were thinking. Because you couldn't see your employees, the bosses were under the impression that people were watching YouTube all day, and on purposely they weren't doing their job, they weren't working. So there were a couple of things here that played a role. Number one is being faced with this technology without having proper training caused a lot of stress. So many times people thought you weren't attending the meeting or you weren't showing up, but it's because you didn't know where to find the button, or the internet was down, you didn't know what was going on. So that is also, then number one, there was stress. Then there were the parents with the kids at home, and now you didn't know how to put your device on mute, or your Zoom or your Teams on mute. So you had the children running in the background and the dogs were barking, and it was absolute chaos. Or in some cases, the husband walking behind with the night clothes on. So and as much as we'd like to laugh at it, it was actually a very distressing time. And the effects of that very distressing time is still touching people to this very day. So instead of thinking, and that people were sitting at home relaxing and not having to work, it was actually quite the opposite. And it had a huge impact, especially on people's mental health, because this was causing an insane amount of pressure for them. So they were sitting there having exposed to using technology, and at the same time with the cybercrime madness going on, they were so much more susceptible for becoming a victim of cybercrime on top of everything else. So it was a very, very stressful time, contrary to, everybody knows it was a stressful time, but I don't think always that aspect of it. It was us dealing with loss and with isolation. Those things also contributed to the stress, but the whole work from home scenario also did.
Okay. Okay, there's a question from our social media platforms. Okay, Krish Emerson is asking, how do you differentiate between an employee who is depressed and one that is lazy?
Well, there's no
Doctor,
technology.
maybe doctor, you can take that.
There is actually no technology to measure the laziness of a person, but it's very important to compare You know, how has the person been before this particular time period that you are questioning? Sometimes laziness can also present itself as part of a person being depressed. Take into cognizance that the person who is actually depressed is sometimes not able to can say, I am depressed, you know, because they are still struggling to find out what is happening with myself. Because one of the symptoms that a person has during depression is that the sleep can be affected. They struggle with initiating sleep. And they will wake up in the middle of the night. Say, for instance, they went to bed at 9 or 10, but then they actually initiated fully sleep at around 12. But then they always wake up before 4 or before 6, and then they are unable to then continue with the sleep. So therefore, when they come to work, they are tired or they feel very drained to start off the day. Like it will be like a person who's lazy, but they pick up a little bit of energy as the time goes. But if you know that we are not saying that the person who is lazy cannot get depression, but it makes it even worse. But you look at the productivity of this person. So we say there is a change from the baseline functioning of this person to the period that they are now depressed. So it will definitely affects the occupational functioning of this person, and it causes a problem.
All right, doctor. We have another question. Richie, third type, is asking, do we have school-based mental health treatments for special needs school children in Namibia? That is also for you, doctor.
Okay, meaning like the question, the way I understand it is like, do we have people that are based in the special needs schools, right, who address the mental well-being of the children? The answer is no. We don't have, because most of them, like, okay, I'm speaking for the ones that are in Windhoek, most of them come there to us. So we treat them from the mental health unit, and then we discharge them with the medication. Those that need to be on medication, we discharge them on medication. So somebody from the school then takes that responsibility to administer the medication based on what is going on with the person. But if it is a person that we say is having probably intellectual disability, then obviously we need somebody who will then be like a treatment support for the child. So we try to educate the school teachers who accompany them with regard to the mental illness within that. So if they bring 5, we say, for example, 3 probably have the same diagnosis, or the 3 other has a different diagnosis. So we try to what we call psychoeducate them about the illness, about the medication, about the symptoms, and then if it is arrested, the symptoms are arrested, what are they, or how do you monitor now a relapse when the person is now going into another episode. Then we also train them or teach them on that. But it will be ideal because World Health Organization says that we need to have healthcare workers that are trained in the society about mental health, and being able to can recognize and then send them then only on the second stage to us. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, doctor. Ms. Ita, as an ambassador and activist for mental health, how would you go about assisting your fellow artists and the general public regarding mental health issues?
I think having started now speaking out or about my experience is a start. Learning more about the disorder, the mental health disorders and mental health well-being. It's a step forward. Aiming at having more discussions like this. I remember actually recently we had a gathering at Mayor's Park with Diva, where we did have, we commemorated World Mental Health Day, which was supposed to be on the 10th, but we had it on the 7th. And the community came, and we had specialists. The mayor was there as well, and we gave information on, signs to look out for, where to seek help. stigmas, how to do away with, things like that. So we had these discussions, and I feel like if we can have more of this discussions, and we can do away with the stigma as well. Because I mean, if you talk about something, it's out there, we're talking about it. It won't be something to hide, because it's there. So I think if we take these discussions to the rural, to the people, I think that would have a big, big impact, and I think we should have more of these discussions.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Maresh, I understand that there have been developments in the technology space to aid the developing, to aid in developing healthy work-life balance. By this, I'm referring to the app that was developed by Microsoft. Can you talk to us through what this is and where it is available? Briefly so, please.
All right, so it does require a bit of just a background where after what happened with the lockdowns, there was a couple of HR trends, human resource trends that started to go viral across the world. The one was cancel culture. So cancel culture basically was we didn't agree with a personality, a person or a company, and we just canceled everything, we ostracized them. Then we had the Great Resignation, which was because of all of the stress that happened, people just resigned, sometimes without a new job or with a job. They just resigned. They just couldn't take it anymore. And then the last one is quiet quitting, which is the latest one. So what happened is that companies like Microsoft, because they were sort of on the forefront in terms of technology, they were experiencing this and they were in touch with employers as well as employees. They actually learned that they could use technology and they could use their software to help with work-life balance without intruding on a person's privacy. So what they did with this app, and I'll tell you now how you can get it because many times it's free. What they did with this app is, what the app does is it looks at, and most of us use Outlook, most of us send email, most of us type with Word documents and use Excel. So this thing actually looks at how you work, and it looks at how much time you spend in meetings, and it's even smart enough to see if you're multitasking meetings. So are you attending one meeting with a group of people, but you're emailing on your device? In other words, you're multitasking, which is also not good. So all of these fantastic things that this app can learn about our behavior and our work, it can now also be used to help us to be more productive. So giving guidance like, what, if you concentrated in the meeting and because you weren't typing the email, you would have quicker, you wouldn't have had to ask questions, you would have done your job quicker and faster. And an interesting fact out of that is that what came out is that we're actually only supposed to be doing work for 4 hours a day out of the 8 hours. The other 2 hours are supposed to be spent on creatively having focused time to grow yourself, not just as a person, but for your job role and for the organization as a whole.
Okay. Ms. Maresh, we are quickly running out of time. Talk to us about how does this specific app assist in achieving work-life balance and the end result, resulting in a healthy mental health?
So yes, so it looks at how we work, it makes suggestions on how we can work better. It also brings us closer to our direct supervisor so that we can have one-on-one times, and things like mental health or mental stress can be discussed. So it's not an invasive thing, but the technology does help us to be more productive and more effective and work from anywhere.
Okay. The information you've just digested is quite sensitive. Does this not infringe on privacy rights of both the employer and employee? So the amazing thing about Microsoft is that they cannot open your emails and they cannot read your documents. They are third-party regulated by regulators like the GDPR not be able to do that. So no, the private insights are completely private, only you can see it. They only use how you are using the software to make these recommendations of how you can improve your work-life balance. All right. We have slowly run out of time. Time always runs so fast when we are having the most fun. Ms. Ita, you have a message of encouragement. If you can kindly please take us through that, and followed by your performance.
All right. Can I go over there?
Yes, you can go over there.
All right. If I could... First of all, I want to say that mental health, is this on? Okay. First of all, I want to say mental health has been affecting the youth lately. And you know, we have a culture in Namibia that has been worrisome, where we're easy to ridicule each other. Instead of uplifting and helping each other, we ridicule each other on social media, at home, at school, we bully each other because we see somebody stumble and fall or suffer, and we see it as a sign of weakness. And we literally ridicule each other to make ourselves feel better. But what people don't understand is, for me, if I'm fine, I would have no need to bully somebody else or to ridicule somebody else or to create a meme to make fun of this person and their situation. So I just want to talk to the youth and say, we need to take care of each other. Not just physically to say, oh, you fell, can I help you, pick you up, but see where you are struggling, like to say, okay, are you okay? You're not concentrating lately, or you seem to be sad, and take your feelings into confidence and say, you know what, today's you, tomorrow it might be me. So why don't we have that spirit of togetherness where we can help and encourage each other and help each other? That is my message basically to the youth. And we've been experiencing a lot of suicides lately. I want to address that as well. I want to speak to my girls and boys. Let's focus on building each other, building this country. And if you see your fellow, girl or boy, reach out to them. And if you can't get through to them, talk to an elder, talk to somebody. Don't be afraid of being judged. Don't be afraid of what's this person going to say. Is going to be gossip, whatever. It's better to say something than to say nothing at all. It's better to seek help than to sit and wallow in your sadness or your problem. It's better to seek help for a better tomorrow instead of sitting in today and sitting in your tomorrow the same way you sat in yesterday, in your sadness. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's seek love, let's seek light, positivity all the way. Thank you.
Okay, your performance kind.
All right. So I wrote this song. I'm quoting Mahatma Gandhi. I'm quoting my favorite Michael Jackson. I'm quoting a lot of greats. There's this message. This song is saying that we are the answer to our problems. We are the key. We're the solution to the problems. So we can be more than what we think we could be. All right.
Okay. Let's go.
I may be down, but I'm not done. I'm still going down that road to my destiny. I may be shaking and my heart is hurting, but my faith is strong and I'll keep holding on, 'cause I believe I could be more than what you think I could be, 'cause I believe we could be more than what we think we could be. We could be the answer, we could be the cure, key to the equation, we could save the world. I believe we could be. Oh, oh, hey, oh, yeah. I believe in the man in the mirror. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. If you can learn to hate, you can learn to love. And eye for an eye, it makes the world blind. Oh, do it with love, or do it with love, or never do it at all. could be more than what you think we could be. We are the answer, we are the cure, key to the equation, we could save the world, I believe. We could be, oh, we are the, yes, we are the, and we are, hey, we are, oh, so much more. We are, hey, hey, yeah, so much more, so much more. Hey, oh, oh. Thank you so much.
All right, Ms. Ita, that was so encouraging to hear and touching. Unfortunately for our NBC viewers, the show has ended a minute ago, but we continue with our viewers of Ministry of Information, or MICT. Dr. Munyala, I would want to just find out what is the age range most affected by suicide in Namibia?
Okay. There is a Coma Suicide Prevention Task Team. They are the ones that are collecting actually most of the data. But the current one, we are saying that we have as low as 9-year-old who completed suicide. And the lowest range was about an old man who has who was 90 years old. And unfortunately now, when the person has completed suicide, you can actually not say what is the cause or what led up to that. But having said that, mostly the common ones are teenagers, yeah, teenagers, and then we say at the late 40s and above 40s are the ones that are most likely to complete suicide. And also the means by which the individual commits suicide, the more dangerous the route is, the more highly successful the person is in completing the suicide. Those who attempt actually also have a high chance of actually completing the suicide based on what they use and what time of the day they tried that, and what way the plans around it, surrounding it. Because some of them, when you save them, when they're saved, they still regret, they do not show regret, and they tell you that I still have the intention to complete that. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Maresh? Oh, we have a call on the line. Okay, anytime from Tumeb. Anytime, welcome back. Anytime? Anytime, can you hear us? Okay, Ms. Maresh, I'd like to know briefly, the app you've just explained, where is it available, how much is the cost implication and everything involved?
Okay, so if you have a Microsoft subscription, then it's already included. You just need to know where to find it, and if you don't know, you can just reach out to Salt, we'll help you find it. So then it's included in the subscription, you don't need to pay for it. It is also available as a standalone subscription, so you can actually acquire it. I think it's starting something like $4 or $5 per month. So you can also, if you are interested even in just getting a trial version and testing it out, you can talk to us. But it's really, if you consider the time that we spend at work and how important our happiness and our mental well-being is to us, then it's worth investing in it.
All right. Doctor, your final remarks for today's show, please. what do you have to say to my fellow Namibians?
To my fellow Namibians, what I would want to say and emphasize on is that mental health is very important for an individual. You need to be mentally healthy for you to be able to function as an individual in your family, in the society, and also at work. So if you do not have mental health or mental well-being, which was also the main theme for this year, which was October, for mental wellness for all, we are saying that let us prioritize that. When you prioritize, we are not saying like as an individual, it's only you who's working towards that. We are saying you as an individual, community members, the government itself, we need to prioritize programs that are actually promoting the mental well-being of a person. We do not have to wait for a person to have a mental disorder or breakdown before we actually introduce this concept. So we should be able to look at preventative measures to put in place in schools, in families, in society, in churches, wherever this person deem as the most important unit in their life. We say we bring that to prevent, so that primarily we can prevent. If we have the symptoms, what do we do? How do we pick up on that? How do we prevent it in our future generation? Because remember, we are saying that even for the unborn, we are actually the ones that are predisposing this person. So if you are in a position to be educated, and well equipped to say, okay, how can I help so that my child does not develop a mental illness? And if the person has developed a mental illness, how do we support them? How do we not discriminate? How do we not stigmatize? Stigmatizing also take place at workplaces. So workplaces, what are the programs that we are going to introduce that promote the well-being of this person? Even in the school, if we have that, how do we do it? If we have a fellow colleague who has a mental breakdown or a mental illness, how do we then reintegrate them into the workplace without stigmatizing them, without making them not get promotions because of the one episode or the 2 episodes of depression they had or other disorders they have. So let us talk about it. Let us make it a topic that we are comfortable with. Let us then say, okay, for mental health workers, how do we actually send a person to a psychologist, psychiatrist, without actually making fun of that person? Then that will promote openness and the way we talk about it. Because if you look at the US, the way they have made mental health such a big deal that they tell you that a person does qualify, for example, to have a month off or 2 months or 3 months off, and then they are still able to be given a certificate to say they are okay now to be able to do their work. But when they come in the workplace, they are not discriminated against. So they look at it like it's the same as high blood or diabetes. So we just take our medication and it's okay. You come back or you continue, you take your medication, but you're still able to work. And we promote also to say our society must go and study because we are very, very few people, very few psychiatrists in Namibia, less than 10 serving the entire population.
All right. Ms. Ita, would you like to say something?
Yes, I'd like to say something quite short. I encourage everybody who was like me to go out there and seek knowledge. Google, type in there, what is mental health? You understand? You'll get your definition, you'll get the signs, symptoms, causes, effects. Educate yourself. Because that's where you start. Be curious about it. Because then not only can you help yourself by identifying, okay, you could identify somebody else's, problem and therefore seek help. And ask questions if you don't understand something. Go to the hospital, call somebody, just find out, basically prioritize your mental health, because without mental health, there is no health, which was this year's slogan for Mental Health Awareness Week. So guys, take care of yourself. Thank you so much.
All right. Ms. Maresh, your final remarks for this episode?
Just thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and especially with the other panelists. It's wonderful to see that Namibians are having such a big focus and drive behind mental health. It's